Hi everyone, and welcome to this short video on the common pitfalls of B2B e-commerce platform selection. My name is Hugh, and I'm the strategy lead here at Rixo, where at Rixo we help B2B companies navigate the complex world of B2B e-commerce. And one of the most important and difficult decisions businesses need to make when embarking on B2B e-commerce is normally around platform selection, as getting this wrong can cost businesses hundreds of thousands of pounds and years spent in developing the right solution for their needs. But not only is it expensive, it can be really exhausting. And today I'm here to share some of the common mistakes we see from merchants and also some top tips from our point of view to make sure you get this platform selection correct. So, the problems that we see with the RFP process in B2B e commerce, and one of the key ones is around agencies recommending their preferred platform or merchants not having a RFP process that they're sticking to and a framework that they're able to anchor their process to. And this really leaves you open to the unintended agency bias, as most agencies will have a handful of platforms that they're most proficient in or most confident in. And when they're asked on how to solve a certain problem, they'll be coming and thinking about the solution from the point of view of the platform that they're most comfortable in, and always trying to sort of fit the platform back into the business, which why it's super important to have a really clear brief and documentation on what your business needs are and what your requirements are. It's also really important to make sure that you get responses from a number of different solutions implementers or agencies, as well as vendors, to make sure that you get accuracy as part of your RFP and platform selection framework. And you've done the research on multiple different vendors and implementers to center check each response against each other and make the best decision on the data that you have available. The second one that we often see is issues with the traditional RFP process and how these are being run. And often it starts with a merchant going to a number of different vendors. And often the vendors will provide an RFP template, and it's often a vendor led process, not a merchant led process. And it really needs to be a merchant led process because ultimately, you know your business the best, you know the stories that you need to achieve. And when you go down the vendor led type process. So, an example of this would be downloading one of the vendor's templates, for instance. They're almost leading the witness into, scoring frameworks and those sorts of things. And it can become uh, essentially a comparison of a feature list and what features are offered between different platforms, but not what features you need to achieve your goal and your business need. So you can be rating and scoring platforms based on features that aren't actually relevant to your business. And this leads into the next point around businesses being distracted by platform features. And I suppose as part of all the vendor pitches and proposal decks and stuff like that that they put out, they can be quite, I suppose, generic or can really showcase the full power of the platform. But ultimately, we need to be making the decision on what meets the business's needs and what are the current pain points that we need solving. So again, really important to not get distracted by platform features by ensuring that you're running the RFP process and you're asking the right questions to the vendors. And ultimately, to do that, and I suppose where we see businesses go wrong is having a poor understanding of what these business needs are and what those questions or problems that you need to pose to the vendors on how they would solve on their platform is having that poor understanding of business needs. And we often say at Rexo, this is the single most important part of an RFP process, and a merchant having a crystal clear understanding of their business needs and what, because then that leads, into the decision making criteria of how each platform, what requirements are mapped back to the business needs and how each platform then scores in meeting those requirements. And not requirements, if a requirement isn't linked back to a business need, it shouldn't be in your RFP and platforms shouldn't be evaluated on. So it's all about getting that data quality at the end of the exercise and making sure that you're only scoring platforms based on the relevant solutions and relevant requirements that ultimately lead into addressing one of your business needs. as this really will anchor your process and provide clarity to both the solutions implementer and the vendor when approaching the RFP. So really, you might go, okay, well, what is that? Like, how do we do that, and what do we need to do to make sure that we're prepared for when we start an RFP process? And really, for us at Rixo, we run the foundations process, which is essentially making sure businesses are ready from a strategy point of view and from a business needs point of view to understand what they need to be assessing when they go out to market to the different B2B e-commerce vendors and solution implementers. So there's three things that we often will suggest to merchants to make sure they're crystal clear on before they start an RFP process. And the first one is what we call an epic statement, but essentially it's a business strategy piece which sets the North Star for the project. So ultimately, if we're successful in delivering the platform, what does it need to achieve? Because we need to be thinking about making sure that we build alignment between the different phases of the project, ultimately to hit the business strategy. And that's really often around ROI. So, for instance, epic statements will include information around, we want to grow our customer database from 15 to 25,000 customers that purchase annually, or it might be we want to grow annual revenue from 40 to 50 million yearly. And it's really important to add that context and make sure that there's alignment between your business strategy and then the next key piece, which is business needs. So the business needs are a documented list of business needs or aspirations, I suppose, of what needs to be solved. What are the problem statements that need to be addressed in order for us to grow the business by 10 million in revenue? And these might be existing pain points, so issues with customer service and breakdown of the order management process, for instance, or it might be talking about migrating certain customers online to increase the average order values and cross-selling to those customers better, more effectively through a website. But essentially creating that list of how are we going to achieve and what are all the problems I need solved by this platform, and ranking them, in order of importance, because that then moves on to the third piece, which is what is our initial build or MVP, and making sure each requirement is mapped back to a business need so that, we're not including any requirement in our, I suppose, vendor scoring matrix that isn't mapped back to a business need. And then in terms of at Foundation, some key tips that we often talk to merchants about, and how to make sure that our business needs list is 100% accurate or has been road tested and sensor checked. We talk about the phases of an e-commerce program, and we actually like to start at the end and then look back and make sure that there's alignment through each phase that I have on the screen up there. So starting with customer adoption or thinking about customer adoption, and ultimately how are customers going to use our platform and what customers need to use our platform in order to achieve our business strategy. And the business strategy, as I sort of gave an example before, is to grow the business by 10 million pound in revenue annually. So that might be through customer migration, that might be through customer acquisition, but thinking about what are the key challenges those customers that we need to use the site for to return an ROI, what are they going to face when they hit the site, and making sure that there's alignment between our business needs, our platform selection documentation, and our initial build of the project to ensure that we've thought about what customers are being used. Another way that we'll do this is we'll look at your customer database and really think about where we get the most amount of revenue for and who are we building this site for. So customer segmentation is important as part of platform selection and ultimately as part of customer adoption, and working out what other customer segments within our business and which ones are most suited for our project and who are we building for. Being able to provide this context through to vendors and agencies is critical in getting the right answers and the right prioritization of business needs and requirements. Another tool that I'd recommend using is our Rixo Impact Framework. So it's talking about people, process, and platform, and making a change to any one of these and how it will affect the three other elements. So when we're discussing business needs as part of Foundations, we always look to understand and evaluate with our clients what the impact on process, on people, and on platform are going to be. So, we make a change to the order management flow. What's the people implication? Who needs to be trained? And it really can then, build out a full brief or a full understanding of what needs to be done in order to meet a business need and develop different requirements around making sure that we're managing the change that's going to occur throughout the organization. And then I suppose after we've got that foundational work done, you're now ready to jump into the RFP. And there's some key bits of documentation that we've developed that are super helpful in running this process. So, in terms of a platform selection guide, we've gone away and we've created a B2B platform selection guide, which is a comprehensive sort of overview of all the steps and all the things that you need to consider. And for anyone, about to embark on a platform selection process, I'd highly recommend having a read through this to make sure you're prepared as possible and you have a full understanding of what agencies and vendors need in order to give you the best outcome. Because we often say it is all about you, but it's not all about you. RFP selection process and making sure your brief to vendors has as much context as possible and has really been sensor checked and road test from a business needs point of view, and there's a full understanding of the changes that we're making. And then lastly, we have our platform selection template. So, how I was talking before about often these are vendor led. This is really an agnostic platform selection template, and all the focus in this template is really around creating that list of business needs and pain points and aspirations and how these are mapped through to your requirements to get an accurate. I suppose the data integrity is key here, but to get an accurate rating of what's most important to really help you understand the variances or the difference between, selecting platform A or selecting platform B, and making sure that you have a key or a real understanding of the impacts of selecting one platform over the other, and what are the people, process, and integration impacts going to be on using each platform. And this really sets the platform selection up on your terms and then really makes the vendors, I suppose, think, evaluate, and assess your business needs properly to give you that more accurate response for you to ultimately, provide those data-driven matrices that will give you your RFP scoring. So lastly, just to quickly wrap up, there was a lot of information there. But yeah, whether you're a merchant, platform, or agency, we'd love to help you. And if you want to go through, the platform selection template in more detail or take a look at your strategic selection framework, please reach out to us and we can book in a call to go through it further. Thanks, everyone.